The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Modern Fantasy. Sign up with the code SGPN to get 50% deposit bonus up to $1K. We're supported by Rhythm. So we're crushing college football in the NFL with Rhythm. Get a 70 free trial today. We do sportsgaming.com, RATHMM. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast here on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is currently Friday night, roughly 9 p.m. Eastern Time on, once again, the East Coast. So I'm your host, always, Scott Reichel, once again, going solo for this pod. Should be a fun episode because it is time to get into the final matches here in Metz and in Belgrade. So we're going to cover both of those matches in a second. For that, though, do want to quickly recap what happened in the last episode, both the lock and dog picks and for the actual match recaps for the semis on Friday. Starting off with the lock and dog picks, kind of the same story, different day, because we ended up winning the lock and we lost the dog. For the lock, had a nice win. We backed Bonzi again, who got the job done. Not easy. I'll get into that in a second. Point is, though, Bonzi got the job done as he ended up winning in straight sets. He won in 3. So that was definitely a sweat. He lost the first set, then came back and he won, but it was definitely drama-filled. But Bonzi got the job done and cashed us a lock for the second straight episode. For the dog, though, bit of a heartbreaker. Had the over 2.5 sets in the Moutet and Norrie match at plus 135. Looked good. Moutet lost the first set, then he was up 5-2 in the second set breaker, and he fell apart. Lost the last 5 points. So once again, Moutet had a chance there. 2 points away from the set, and instead he fell apart. So either way, point is lost the dog there, despite having a very good chance to actually get there in the second set. So overall, once again, basically broke even, and we'll look for a sweep here on the Saturday matches. Now, before we get into the actual recap, though, do want to remind you once again that you can show support for the show by liking and subscribing, and remind you can also show support by leaving a rating and a review on Spotify or Apple. So once again, please leave some type of feedback, whether it's positive or negative, in the form of a review and a rating on Spotify to let us know we can improve the show with, or also just letting us know if you like the show the way it is. Plus, a reminder, though, for YouTube, you can watch it live. You can watch it on YouTube form, in video format afterwards, or even catch it on Twitter, because we do simulcast there on the SGPN Twitter account. The point is you can watch in a variety of ways, but if you are new to the show, welcome. Hopefully you enjoy. If you are returning, then hopefully you continue joining us for future episodes. But either way, point is you can show support, so please do so before you forget. Plus, a reminder, check out the merch store. For Tennis Gambling Podcast merch, the SGPN website has a merch store, and we have a lot of great Tennis Gambling Podcast merch. We have sweatshirts, t-shirts, and mugs, all high quality or affordable. And a reminder, we have different color options. If you do want to see some shirts, we have different colors. So once again, try to find something that you might like. And a reminder, not just for this show, we could also find a lot of great merchandise for other shows. For example, the College Experience, because college basketball is back. And if you aren't already subscribed to the College Experience for their daily podcast picks, then what are you waiting for? Because they break down every game. No exaggeration. Every game. I don't know how they ever have time to sleep. That's what they do. Shout out to Kobe and company. Point is, though, also a reminder, thank you again for tuning into the tennis show, and whether it involves this show or other shows of the network, please leave a 5-star rating and review on Spotify. Only you can help prevent gambling. Only you can prevent corporate gambling from taking over. Anyway, time to get into the recap of the matches on Friday. Said before in the lock and dog pick, since we did spread out the lock and dog for a couple matches, I discussed a couple of them. Getting into, though, the matches in greater depth, starting off with Belgrade. Shapo absolutely killed Leheshka. Wasn't even close. Beat him 6-2, 6-1. Thought Shapo would win. I know Leheshka he gave out pre-tournament. Wasn't a big fan of how he looked against Klein. I know he got the job done. He won in 3. But Shapo has been just on the absolute warpath, and Shapo ended up winning comfortably. Dropped 3 games in the entire match. Leheshka seemed a bit injured, but either way, Shapo showed no mercy, and he won that one comfortably. The other match was probably the second best match of the day, as you ended up having Medjedovic, who outlasted Djir in a battle of Serbs in the, of course, Belgrade semis. So point is, it was definitely a solid crowd atmosphere, with both players being from the home country, but either way, Medjedovic got the job done, outlasting Djir in the final set via breaker, as he ended up winning that by the scoreline of 7-2. No breaks, though, in the entire third set, so there weren't any missed opportunities by Djir. Had a break point, though, in the 3-3 game and the 4-4 game. So he had a couple chances there, but they were small. And Medjedovic got the job done as he immediately opened up a 5-1 lead in the breaker, as he ended up coasting to a nice win in the third set and eventually into the final. So moving on to the actual matches in Metz, kind of a similar story. The early match wasn't exactly that drama-filled. It was a bit late in the second set. Then the second match was probably the match of the day. So starting off with the first match, Moutet lost in straight sets to Norrie. Norrie looked great early, and then Moutet settled in. I believe Norrie was up a set in a break, actually, and then Moutet ended up coming back. However, it was pretty annoying because in addition to losing the dog because of the blown 5-2 lead in the tiebreak, Moutet also led by a break. He was up 4-2. in the second set, then gave the break right back to Norrie, and then eventually, again, he choked away a 5-2 lead in the tiebreak. So I would say Moutet had chances. Norrie just outlasted him, and it felt like Moutet was constantly getting the worse end of the longer rallies towards the end of the match. But either way, Norrie did a good job of regaining his nerve after he was up a break in the second. Then he was immediately down a break in the second, but he fought back and eventually did win in the tiebreak 7-5. Moutet had some chances, though. He ended up getting annoyed. He broke a racket or two. But either way, Norrie got the job done while also annoying Moutet in the handshake line again. Yeah, Norrie, I feel like, will go out of his way to try to annoy his opponents, and you could argue that it's good strategy, bad sportsmanship, whatever. Point is, though, Moutet was not the first guy in the post-match handshake this week to be a little bit, let's just say, angry at Norrie. We'll see if that happens again in the final, but something to keep in mind. Norrie is still not exactly the most, let's say, pleasant player to play against. Anyway, after that, you had the very bizarre match, which was Mickelson against Bonzi. Yes, we did win the lock on this, but it was definitely a really, really weird match. So Mickelson was initially in a bit of trouble early, I would put it that way. I mean, Bonzi threatened to break him in the first service game that he had. Then eventually Mickelson settled in, got the break, ended up holding it out to win 6-4. Then the match kind of went off the rails because Mickelson got injured and he had a hard time serving. So Mickelson ended up really struggling to actually hit over just normal serves. I would say that Mickelson had a hard time generating any lift, and it felt like he was kind of just stuck serving flat-footed half the time. So as a result, he ended up getting bageled. Bonzi did beat him 6-0 in the second set. Had a couple of break points in the 0-4 game, but did not convert, and Bonzi did win via bagel. So you figure, okay, well, Mickelson can't serve. He's done because Bonzi just ended up winning the second set via bagel. And Bonzi, I said before, has been one of the hottest players on tour for the last couple of weeks because he was on a massive winning streak in challengers, and he's in great form. However, Mickelson fought back because Bonzi did end up having a pretty interesting match that developed because you had a break in 4 straight games. Bonzi ended up getting the break to go up 4-2, got broken back. Then Mickelson got broken again in the 3-4 game. So Bonzi was serving for the match, ended up getting broken, so it ended up going to 5-4. Then Mickelson fought off 2 match points while serving at like 70 or 80 miles per hour. He really could not serve at all, and Bonzi could not convert those match points. And then eventually, he did get the job done on the 5th match point in the 7-5 game. So point is, either way, Bonzi did not make it easy on himself. Mickelson got injured, so he was a bit lucky, I'd say, that Mickelson ended up falling apart physically to get the job done. But Bonzi didn't exactly look that great. Mickelson was serving underhand for a decent portion of that third set. It was really, I'd say, admirable, the effort that Mickelson put forward, because you figure if you can't serve and you're against a guy who's in great form like Bonzi, Mickelson's had some interactions with the crowd in a negative way, mostly trying to egg them on during the Gasquet match, for example, a couple rounds ago. But Mickelson fought until the bitter end, and unfortunately for him, he fell short. It was good for us, but it's tough to win when you actually just can't serve, and that's what we saw. He was trying to serve underarm half the time with the spin to the side. Then he started hitting some forehands as a serve. Yeah, that was actually a technique that he used. Props to Mickelson for trying. Nothing you could really do there. His body betrayed him, and Bonzi capitalized. But Bonzi did win. I wasn't overly impressed, to be honest, and I think Mickelson might have beaten him if he did not get injured. But that's neither here nor there. Point is, Bonzi won, we won, and now we'll look to see if Bonzi can finish off the great week by getting the job done in the final in his home country in Metz on Saturday. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for the actual recap of the matches for Friday. By the way, I do want to address one thing that I did forget to talk about before. I was originally going to do an episode for the WTA semis, for the WTA finals. Unfortunately, I didn't exactly have the time last night, so I ended up having to skip it. But we are going to do the women's final of the WTA finals. I got to figure out a better way to phrase that. Point is, though, in Saudi Arabia, we're going to cover the championship match between Zhang and Goff in the episode after this one. So there will be a women's episode coming out tonight. But point is, keep that in mind. That's going to be on the agenda. Wanted to mention it before I forgot. Anyway, time to get into the actual matches for Saturday. But want to remember once again first that we are brought to you by Fantasy because they have all the great items on their pick menu. They have, for example, the NFL, college football, college basketball, MMA, NBA, NASCAR, tennis, and more. Boosttober's upon us. Get a spooky amount of profit boost and much more. And a reminder, you get any specials and boosts on our Flex entries. For my upcoming entry, I think I am going to go with Joe Flacco, higher half an interception against the Bills on Sunday. Flacco, I still like the fact that he's hanging around and he's actually been pretty entertaining as a quarterback this season and last year when he won Comeback Player of the Year. Turnovers, though, still an issue. Saw him have one last week against Minnesota. Buffalo, not an easy place to play, and you're looking at Buffalo being a good defensive team. Think that Flacco forces one, and I do think the Bills will make the Colts one-dimensional by trying to take away the ground game. So I am going to go with Flacco, higher half an interception in that game on Sunday. A reminder, though, when you do sign up for an account, use the promo code SGPN to claim a special pick and first-time deposit offer up to $1K in bonus cash on a fantasy promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Scaling Podcast. Just finished recapping what happened on Friday. Time to move on to the Saturday matches. Starting off with the first match, going to look at the matchup between Medjedovic and Chapo at around 9 a.m. So for this one, Chapo's favored, decent favorite, minus 240. Medjedovic is around plus 200. Game spread minus 2.5 or minus 3, give or take for Chapo. Over-under is around 23 or 22.5. For the set spread, Chapo in straight sets is plus 110. Medjedovic to win a set is minus 140. The over 2.5 sets is plus 145. Now, Chapo's been great. Went through qualifying here. He's had a really bad year, but finally he appears to be back to his old form because Chapo has been amazing for the entire event. He went through qualifying, only dropped one set in the entire tournament, 6 matches, 5 straight set wins. So once again, he has been dominating, and in the actual draw ended up beating Fuchsovics in a marathon there in 3. After that, has not dropped more than 3 games in a set once. And that was the second set against Borges. He beat O'Connell 6-2, 6-2, and beat Leheshka 6-2, 6-1. So Chapo has been the best player here by far, and I do think Chapo is a worthy favorite of this price. I did like him against Leheshka, but the point is he passed every test with flying colors, and he was able to win, only dropping 3 games against Leheshka in the semis, so I'm impressed by his performance. Now, as for Medjedovic, he's had a tougher path. Beat Nakashima in the first round in 3, tough matchup there. Beat Kovacevic in straight sets with a breaker, beat Cerundolo, and beat Desir. So he's been good too. He hasn't exactly had the best year either. Had some injuries as well, but the point is Chapo, I think, is in better form. No head-to-head history, but Medjedovic has not exactly had many tour final experiences, while Chapo has. So I do think that I'd say that the potential experience of Chapo might pay off in this spot, but based on the overall eye test and the overall performances that I've seen from both guys, I think Chapo's going to win. I think Chapo is right now the player to beat in this one, so I am going to personally go with the favorite again. I'm just looking at a spot where Chapo has been returning very well, he's serving well, and that one-handed backhand has been incredible on these courts here in Belgrade. I think Medjedovic can make one set competitive, maybe a tiebreak, but I do think at the end of the day, he has had a pretty good run. I just think that it's going to end here. I think Chapo's too good for him at this point in time. And Medjedovic maybe can get the job done with the crowd behind him. I'm skeptical. I know Medjedovic can mentally break down at times if things don't go his way. It might be a reason why he has not exactly cracked into the top 20 at this stage in his young career. He's had some issues with his overall motions mid-match, and it's been going well for him so far in this tournament. But I think Chapo will push him around, at least at times, and I wonder how Medjedovic is going to respond. Either he rises up and he tries to fight back, or maybe he rolls over. I'm a bit concerned it might be the latter. So I'm going to go with Chapo to win, and I'll go with Chapo to cover the spread here. Minus 1.5 sets at plus 110. I find quite appealing as well. I think Medjedovic is good. I like him as a player, but I do think that Chapo right now is the guy to beat in the event. So I'll go with him to get the job done in probably straight sets on Saturday. Moving on to the next match, going to talk about the matchup in Metz between Bonzi and Nori. So for this one, basically a pick'em. You're looking at Nori about minus 112. He was the dog for most of the afternoon. Then the line flipped to Nori being but barely. I'd say Bonzi was like minus 115. Now he's minus 108. So the line hasn't moved that much, but money has come in on Nori. For the game spread, you have minus 0.5 for Nori. You have plus 0.5 for Bonzi. Over-unders around 23.5 or 22.5. For the actual set spread, you have both guys to win in straight sets at a pretty large price. Nori in straight sets is plus 240. Bonzi in straight sets is also at plus 240. The over 2.5 sets is around plus 130. Now, you have seen Nori look pretty good. We saw him come back from injury, had a really bad year because of injury, but he's been regaining his form, and now he's in a final. So we'll see if he can win a title for season's end. He's been in a couple of marathons, though. Had a 3-setter in each of the first 3 matches, then should have had a 3-setter against Moutet, but Moutet choked in the second set tiebreak. But either way, point is he's here, and he's looking for another title. But he's experienced, been there before. We saw him win a title against Alcaraz on clay last year. He won't be afraid of the overall spot. Bonzi, though, has won ATP titles as well, and he has been in great form, so it should be a pretty fun battle between the two of them. Now, Bonzi has only dropped 1 set in the entire event. It was in the last match against Mickelson, so he has been in great form, and we do know that he ended up dropping the match entering this event in Brest in the final. 2 for Tannen, had 3 match points, and he choked them as well. So besides those 3 choked away match points in the title match against Virtanen and challengers, you're looking at him potentially being on a massive winning streak. And Bonzi has been in great form. I get it. But the question is, how concerned am I about Bonzi after he barely beat a guy who couldn't serve in the semifinals? And I think I'm a bit concerned. Yes, Bonzi's been great, and he has been good competition. Norrie, though, I think, has played well. And Bonzi seemed to let the nerves get the better of him towards the end of that third set, mostly because Mickelson kept breaking back when he was down a break. Bonzi didn't exactly do a great job closing, and I am wondering if nerves might play a factor in this matchup. But Norrie, whether he's a pest or not, kind of, I'd say, using the other player's native language to pump himself up intentionally to kind of get a rise out of his opponents, stuff like that. Point is, though, Norrie's been playing some good tennis, and I do think that he has been in good enough form to pull this off. Now, Bonzi's been good to us. We took him twice in a row as the lock, and he cashed both times for us. But I do think that Norrie has the overall game to frustrate Bonzi, and I think you're going to see a lot of baseline rallies here. But Norrie, I think when you're looking at both players, if they were at full strength, who you take Norrie. I mean, Norrie was a former top 10 player, I believe. He made the Wimbledon semi. He beat Alcaraz in a clay title last year. Point is, when he's healthy, Norrie is a solid player, and Bonzi is fine, but he's not at Norrie's level. So I think based on that, I am going to go with Norrie, actually. I'm sure a lot of people thought I was going to go with Bonzi with the home crowd behind him in France. I did say before entering the event that French players have done quite well here in the past. But Norrie, I think, is starting to look like the player he was pre-injury, and I think that he's a better player than Bonzi is. Should be close, though. I see an absolute war. I'm not going to pick one guy to win comfortably. Give me the over in this one. But for the actual matchup, I agree with the actual line movement. I think Norrie should be a slight favorite here. I'd have him at like minus 115, minus 120, but I think that it's going to get the job done probably in 3 sets in this one. That's going to wrap it up, though, for the actual matches on Saturday. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks, but I want to remind you once again, first, they're brought to you by Rhythm, because Rhythm has the ability to give you a lot of sports betting platforms they can give you a lot of models on the sports betting platform, because they can give you custom predictive models in seconds. You can get predictions on money line, spreads, holes, and props. You can build your own model, copy one from the leaderboard, or build a model by pressing that button. Rhythm will give you one immediately, no questions asked. You can get predictions on every game and player props, and they also have a bunch of stats, research, and analysis to help you with more betting insights. And a reminder, you could also try it out for college basketball. They do have college basketball models, so if you know nothing about college basketball and you wanted a thought on the, for example, Kansas-North Carolina game tonight, then you wouldn't go in blind. You can use Rhythm to help you out with that in seconds. Plus, a reminder, you can try it out for free for a week. If you are skeptical about the actual product, they let you try it out for free so you can see for yourself how good it is. Point is, though, use the link, sportsgambling.com/rhythm, sportsgambling.com/RETHMM for your 7-day free trial. We're also brought to you by BetUS. BetUS has been around for more than 30 years. And a reminder, you can easily deposit in crypto and get lightning fast payouts. You could also, once again, use the link, use sportsgambling.com/BetUS. Promo code SGPN, so we send you BetUS, America's favorite sportsbook. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Just finished previewing the matches on Saturday. Now it's time for the lock and dog picks. For the lock and dog, once again, going to spread the love. Going to talk about one match for the lock and another match for the dog. Starting off with the lock, I am going to go back to the Belgrade final. I am going to go with Chapo to win. But I'm mostly going to, technically doesn't have to win. I'll go with the spread. I'll go with Chapo minus 2.5 games here at minus 132 on Bet Rivers. Chapo's only dropped 1 set in the entire event. He's been incredible. I think he's been the best player here by far. And when you beat Lehechka that hard, I'd say when you beat him 6-2, 6-1, I think you're on a certain level that I think most guys aren't going to be able to match you with, especially with the lack of proper, I'd say, talent depth in this field. But Chapo's been great, and I feel like even though Medjedovic has been good, still young, I wonder about inexperience, maybe the nerves will get to him. But I think you're looking at Chapo, who's right now in too good of a form for Medjedovic to handle. I think he'll get the job done while covering the spread. Plus, Medjedovic had a 3-set marathon against Degir, so you have to wonder if fatigue might play an issue. Might not, but I think that Chapo, once again, has the overall game and right now the confidence to really do some damage to Medjedovic, and I see that happening here. So give me Chapo backing the player in great form to get the job done. Minus 2.5 games here at minus 132 is my lock. Pretty decent price compared to the actual money line at minus 240. For the dog, though, going to go to the matchup between Bonzi and Norrie. Give me the over 2.5 sets at plus 130 on Caesars. 3 of Norrie's last 4 matches have gone to a deciding set, but a reminder, probably should have been 4-4 because Moutet was up a break and he was up 5-2 in the second set breaker, and then he choked it. So the point is, it could have easily been every match here for Norrie has gone to a deciding set. Unfortunately, didn't happen, as you saw Moutet choke. But the point is, Norrie's been involved in a bunch of marathons, and I think that might happen once again here. The odds are very close together. You're looking at both guys being around minus 110. The odds maker suggests that the line's going to be a pretty, once again, I'd say, volatile. You might see a lot of fluctuating back and forth of who's going to be favored or not, but the point is the line's close. So the odds makers are expecting a very close battle. I agree. Give me that script for this one. And a reminder that Norrie has also lost at least one set in 8 of his last 9 matches, with the one exception being the match yesterday where he should have dropped the set. So based on that, I think plus 130 is a good price. I am going to go with that as my dog. So once again, the plays for the title matches in Belgrade and Metz. The lock's going to be on Chapo. Minus 2.5 games here at minus 132. Dog will be on Bonzi and Norrie over 2.5 sets of plus 130. Reminder back once again later tonight for the WTA Tour Finals title match between Zhang and Goff. So we're going to preview that in a little while. But for that, though, want to once again remind everybody that you can show some support for the show by liking, subscribing on YouTube. And remind you can also leave a rating and a review on Spotify or Apple. Check the merch store as well. Till next time, good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.